Yes, mister. What can I do for you? Right. Sarah, an order of lamb. So you've been traveling far today? Bethany, huh? Kind of a cold day for a 5-mile walk, ain't it? I remember when I could walk 10, 15 miles a day and not even get winded. Years are starting to catch up on me. We don't get too many travelers from over Bethany way anymore. Most of the merchants stay in the big fancy inns now. Oh, sure. Sure, I most always have a vacancy, but I remember a time when I could name my price for any room in the place and even had people begging to sleep on the floor. One time, the wife, kids, and me even gave up our beds and slept out here on the tables. It must have been 30 years ago. About this time of year, too. It was back when everybody had to go to the town where they was born so the government could do a head count. What a mess. Hundreds of people on the road. Cripples, blind people, pregnant women, rich folks, too, and all of them looking for a room for the night. No kidding. You remember your folks telling you about that time, eh? Sure. I remember that baby that was born out there in the barn during the census rush. His folks come begging for a room for the night, but we was full up and running over, so we said they could sleep out there. Wife tried to find some blankets for them, but everything we had was being used, so we spread some rags out on the straw for the lady. Little one was born that very night, too. A pretty little thing he was. It caused quite a commotion. Big wigs and sheep herders alike come to see him. The strangest thing, they'd just be walking down the road and stop right here as if something told them this was the place. It said something about following some light in the sky. And then they'd ask about the baby. Sometimes they'd come in grumbling and complaining about the long road and troubles they had along the way, but they go out there in the barn, they just quiet right down. Stand there and look at that baby without even saying a word. They finally did leave. They all had a peaceful sort of smile on their face as if they all knew some sort of secret. I never really understood what was going on. I was too busy taking care of the paying customers to be much concerned with what was going on out there. About the only time I'd see them was when I'd go out to feed or milk. Then I had a hard time getting the chores done for all the people crowding around. It got to be kind of a bother. So when the lady was strong enough, I suggested that they be on their way. Not that they weren't nice enough folks and all. But with all these other people needing to be fed and put up, I had to stay on top of things, make the money while I could, Here's your order of lamb. Say, I've been rambling on, so I forgot to ask why you inquired about that baby being born out there. No kidding? Sarah, come here. You remember that baby that was born out there in the barn during the census rush? You're not going to believe it, but this fella here says that was him. He said he walked all the way over from Bethany just to see the place. What do you know? We often wondered what became of you and your family after you left here. We figured with all them wise men and rulers seeking you out, why, you must have turned out to be somebody pretty special. What are you? A big businessman? A government official? Something like that? Preacher, huh? Well, that's all right. I mean, we can all do with a little uplift of the spirit, especially in times like these. I thought, sure, though, you turn out to be something extra special. It just goes to show you. So where's your church? Traveling preacher, huh? I guess things don't change much. You was born traveling, you're still doing it. Oh, sure. I might come and hear you preach sometime. Over in Bethany. I don't know. That's a pretty long walk for an old bird like me. Hey, see, you wouldn't happen to be that fellow's been stirring up all that trouble over there in Bethany, would you? All that hocus pocus about raising some guy from the dead? That is you, huh? Yeah, the salesman coming through been telling me about you. Some of the things you've been saying. All that stuff about God being your father. Look, I don't know what you meant by that, but I happen to know that your father come to my door some 30 years ago begging for a room for the night, and he was a man, just like me. Look, son, take my advice. Let it die down. You're going to get yourself in a whole lot of trouble with talk like that. Cause a lot of trouble for a lot of other folks, too. You know, Romans don't like that kind of talk. As a matter of fact, you know, I got enough troubles of my own without more walking in my front door, so why don't you just finish up your order of lamb and be on your way? Why, I suppose you can't do any harm in just looking. Don't bother the animals none. Yeah, the manger's still there. Pardon? A room for the night. No, I'm full up. I got some of my regulars coming in later on. I don't have anything left. You might try one of them fancy inns down the road. Yeah, well, thanks just the same, but I'm pretty sure I won't be coming to hear you preach. I'm pretty busy these days. Yeah. Yeah, so long. You know, Sarah, I thought sure he'd turn out to be something extra special. Just goes to show you. Alms? Alms? Won't you help the blind? Alms? All I had to do was to listen and to ask. But you see, I was afraid. Afraid everything that I'd heard about him was a lie. Afraid of being disappointed. Afraid of becoming something I had never been before. You see, my world, as bad as it was familiar to me. Even though I hated it, there was a kind of comfort in my familiar darkness. The world described to me by others was a foreign land filled with strange sensations called light and color, just words that meant nothing to me. About the only comfort I found was with my friend, who, like myself, had been blind since childhood. Together we shared our pain. But where I feared what this other world might be like, he seemed to see it as a place of miracles. I listened to his dreams, but silently scoffed at his foolishness. And then one day my friend came to me with an uncontrollable excitement. He said that he'd heard this man, a prophet of some kind, speak of a place where pain would be no more, where the lame could walk and the blind could see. You're a fool, I said. Chase after this merchant of dreams if you must, but you'll not find me dancing to the song of this singer of lies. Come with me. Hear him preach. My friend pled, but I shoved him aside and made my way back to my little corner by the temple, where I begged for alms from the worshipers passing by. It was many days before I heard the voice of my friend again. When he called my name, there was a strange sound in his throat, the sound of great pain. He took my face in his hands. He turned it up towards his own. He whispered my name again. And as he did, I felt drops of warm water fall upon my cheek. My friend, I said, you're weeping. Yes, he said to me, I weep from a great hurt. Suddenly I knew what had happened. He'd gone after this prophet with his dreams of this other world and was returning to me empty and disappointed as I knew he would. My heart ached for him, and I wanted to hold him close and bring his darkness into mine giving him the little peace that can come from shared sorrow. I'm sorry, my old friend, I said as I stood and grasped him in my arms. I'm sorry you did not find your dream. He slowly held himself away from me, and a great sob shuddered through his body. You don't understand, he said. I had to come back to you. I had to see you, even though I had to close my eyes to find my way here. I weep not for myself, but for you, my friend who sits in darkness. Then he slowly backed away from me into his new world, a world I had feared and hoped for, and cannot see, because I would not hear. Holmes, won't you help the blind? Alms. Alms. Take it back. I don't want your blood money. You set me up. You lied to me. Take it back. No, don't you walk away from me. Please listen to me. No, don't close the gates. Please listen. I don't want your blood money. Was it supposed to happen like this? I thought, what? What were you thinking, Judas? Did you actually think you could force the hand of God? Yes, why not? Has not God worked through his people throughout history? Why not me? He claimed to be the Messiah. I believed him. We have long awaited the one who would restore our kingdom. Jesus was the one. I was sure of it. He had such power to perform miracles, power to heal the sick. The crowds thronged to him. They would follow his lead. Jesus was the one. The time was right. And he trusted me. He made me their treasurer. Why wouldn't he listen to me? I tried to convince him we should be preparing to make our move, a call to arms. He would dismiss me, tell me I did not understand. He was the one who did not understand. Always talking about his kingdom, how it was not of this world. I don't understand that. We only have this one world. If he was the Messiah, it was time to act. I had to do something. I thought if I could put him into a position where there was no alternative, he would be forced to act. The high priest were the perfect pawns in my plan. For 30 pieces of silver, I would set into motion the greatest revolution in history. Peter had the right idea. Draw your sword, take a life, spill a little blood, and the people would revolt. But Jesus stopped him. The priests, they used me. I became their pawn. I thought they would hold him for questioning, harass him just enough to unite his followers, but not condemn him to death. Oh, his blood will be on my head. My lips are burning. These very lips that tasted the fruit of fellowship with him betrayed his master with a kiss. The kiss of death. Take it back! I don't want your money! You deceived me! I deceived myself. I listened to voices inside my head. They deceived me. Jesus was right. He knew all along. He could have stopped me, but he condemned me with his words. Woe to the man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him had he not been born. He condemned me. Surely, as I condemned him. I cannot bear this. I cannot bear to live. I'm a cursed man. I must die. I must die.
All right. What seems to be the problem here? One at a time, one at a time. Yes, you. Oh, you've heard the rumors, have you? And what have you heard? One at a time, yes. Oh, the stone was rolled away, was it? Oh, they're saying the tomb was empty, are they? Oh, the guards were all unconscious, eh? Oh, and some are saying he's raised himself from the dead, huh? And how many of you believe this nonsense? Not sure, eh? Well, let me tell you what really happened. I was there. It was a long day at the end of a very long week. I and some other soldiers were sent to guard the tomb. While we were there, we fell asleep. His disciples came and stole the body. That's all there is to it. Now, run on along about your business, and if you hear anybody else spreading this rumor about this Jesus coming back from the dead, you set them straight. Run along now. You heard me, lady. I said be on your way. What do you mean you don't believe me? Who are you to question Roman authority? Well, Mary of Magdala, do you have any proof that I'm lying? You were there. Came to wrap the body, eh? You saw me running from the graveyard. Well, that doesn't prove anything. Yes, I know his disciples are in hiding. We've been looking for them. Do you? Oh, you were with them. You can prove they didn't go anywhere near the tomb. Well, I don't know why, but I believe you may be telling me the truth. What really happened? Now, why should I tell you? Hey, keep your voice down. All right, I'll tell you. But if you tell anyone I told you, I'll deny it. There were 4 of us sent to guard the tomb. I thought it was ridiculous to send Roman soldiers to guard the tomb of a dead man, but the priests, they were afraid. Said they'd heard some rumor about him coming back from the grave. They were afraid the disciples would steal the body, create a big hoax. Pilate cannot stand the priest, but they can make life miserable for him, so he goes along with their request. Anyway, the evening started out fine, although it was dark, darker than usual. Ever since we've crucified that man, the weather's been strange. Were you at the crucifixion? You know how strange things got. Middle of the day, sky as black as night, and the earthquake. It was like heaven and earth united in one giant convulsion. Very strange. Anyway, some of us were sleeping. That much is true. We went in shifts, to awake, to sleeping. I was on guard with Demetrius. It was late, probably about 3 o'clock in the morning. Quiet. Too quiet, if you know what I mean. And then it started. A noise at first, kind of a rumbling. And then the earth started to shake, like it did on Friday, only less violent. Other soldiers jumped to their feet. There was a moment of panic, and then a light. A bright light came from the area around the tomb, and then a flash of light, and a man. I think it was a man. It was so bright. Stepped out of the light. He stretched forth his arm. The stone started to move. And that's it. I mean, that's it. That's all I remember. The next thing I remember is waking up. It's morning, the sun is shining. At first, I think I've got one whopper of a hangover, except I hadn't been drinking. I look around me. All the other soldiers are passed out around me. I wake them up. Everyone seems to be all right, except Demetrius. Demetrius still isn't responding. He's got this glazed look on his face. He hasn't said a word. He may never be the same. Anyway, we come to our senses. It's then that we realize that we need to check out the tomb. We're all frightened, but since I was senior officer, it fell on my shoulders. I tiptoe into the tomb, my weapon drawn. It's empty. We ran like frightened children back to the city. That must have been when you saw me. We go to the temple first and meet with the priest. Needless to say, they are not thrilled to hear the news. They pay us pretty well to tell the story that I told earlier, that we fell asleep and the disciples stole the body. I can't explain it. Maybe we were drugged. Maybe it was some kind of trick, some kind of sorcery. Somebody must have stolen the body. I mean, the dead do not come back from the grave, right? What are you laughing at? You what? You saw him? He spoke to you. You're crazy. You must have been drugged too, if you believe that. Wait, where are you going? No, you can't tell them. I'll deny it. Oh, she's crazy. The dead do not come back from the grave. We must have been drugged. We must have been. There's no other explanation, is there? Is there? All right. What seems to be the problem over here? Oh, you've heard the rumors, have you? Well, let me tell you what really happened. I was there. It was a long day, at the end of a very long week. I and some other soldiers were sent to guard the tomb. We fell asleep. That's all there is to it. What did they say they wanted this one? Oh, you figure it out. What? It wasn't me. You're thinking of my evil twin, Didymus number 1. I am Didymus number 2. Oh, brother. I mean that. Oh, brother. My twin brother, Didymus. You might know him as Thomas. We have the same names. What can I say? Our parents weren't very creative, I guess. We was born twins. They named us both Didymus. That's Greek for twin. Yeah, I know. You could say that's Greek to me. Bad enough that we look the same. Having to go through life with the same name is cruel and unusual punishment. My older brother, Lucius, he had great fun with it. He would always introduce us to his friends. He'd say, "Hey, I'm Lucius, and this is my brother Didymus, and my other brother Didymus." They came out second, so I always got to be the other brother Didymus. Whenever we would have an accident, like spill a milk or something, he'd always break into this little chant, "Didymus, Didymus, Didymus, Didymus." I was 10 years old before I realized my name didn't mean dirty diaper. I was actually glad when Didymus #1 decided that he wanted to be called Thomas. Thomas, there's a nice ring to it. A lot better than Didymus. But I wasn't about to be Thomas #2. At least I can have a name all to myself now. Changed his name when he started following this man Jesus. I must admit, I had some pretty serious doubts when he took off after that guy. He'd come home and tell us some pretty incredible, some pretty unbelievable stories. Stories about people being healed, turning water into wine, feeding thousands of people from a little boy's lunch. We were worried about him. You see, Thomas and I, we're alike in more ways than I cared to admit. But one thing that we prided ourselves in is that we were realists. I mean, you tell us some incredible story about miracles, magic, or the supernatural. We'd say, put a sandal in it, I ain't buying it. We'd always say that at the same time, in unison. Then we'd say, Jink, show me a coconut. Really annoying. But you better be able to prove yourself. You're going to make some wild claims around us. Anyway, Thomas would come home and tell us these stories. And at first, I was able to reason with him. He actually had doubts again, very encouraging. I told him how magicians used distractions and had accomplices, and, this Jesus, he was just probably some master magician or something. But off he'd go again. Each time he'd come home, he'd be harder to convince. So one day he says to me to come with him. He says there's this guy Lazarus who's dead, and that Jesus is going to do something about it. I said, yeah, what, raise him from the dead? Well, I go with him. This Lazarus, he was pretty dead. I mean, he got close and you could smell it. All the people were crying, really upset. I figure either this guy is dead or these people are some very good actors. I mean, he was in his tomb already. You don't fake that kind of thing. Well, then Jesus does this thing. He says, Lazarus, come out. You know what? He came out. Here he comes, dressed in his death clothes, stinking to high heaven, but very much alive. Well, that was it for me. I said, Jesus, I believe, right there on the spot. Lazarus was not the only one who came alive that day. I started hanging around with Thomas more. I took every chance I could to see this Jesus. Then things got pretty ugly. You know this part, right? How they arrested Jesus and killed him. Oh, it was a bad time. I mean, a really bad time. Thomas came home, all full of doubts and scared, and me too. He hung out with us for a few days. Well, after things calmed down a bit, Thomas ventures out again. He meets up with some of his disciple friends, and they start telling him how they was in this house with all the doors and windows locked. And suddenly, Jesus appears. Thomas says, put a sandal in it. I ain't buying it. He said, unless I see with my own eyes and put my finger where those nails were, I will not believe. And then, just as sure as I'm standing here talking to you, Jesus appears. He says, Thomas, look at me. See my hands. Stop doubting and believe. Thomas told me this. I was a little skeptical. I figured, poor guy, he's a few camels short of a caravan. But then he invites me to this meeting with all the disciples and other followers. And there he was. There was Jesus. There was no doubt about it. Standing there talking to him, just as alive as I am talking to you. Now, I'm telling you this because I saw it with my own 2 eyes. But let me tell you what Jesus told Thomas. He says, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen me and believed. Huh? So, now Thomas gets this bad rap. Everybody calls him Doubting Thomas. And because I look just like him, they think he is me. I am not him. But to tell you the truth, I would give anything to trade places with him. To have been in that room at that moment, to look into his eyes, to see his ruined hands. Oh, I would trade places with him in a heartbeat. Well, I better get back to work. What did they say they wanted this one?
All right, I got it.
They tell me I'm to be tied to a wooden pole, painted with pitch, and set on fire. That's what they're doing with us these days. They've arrested so many of us, they no longer need us for the lions in the arena. When I'm dead, my name will be forgotten. Records are not kept for slaves. I said that I was a slave. That isn't really true. I was freed by my master over a year ago. I was a free man until now. And if I choose, I can be free once again. All I have to do is to make my mark on this piece of parchment. It all began quite simply. I was on an errand for my master. My journey brought me to the heart of Rome, near this very spot where I am now held prisoner. A large crowd had gathered. My curiosity made me join them. There was a man at the center of the crowd who spoke of one who came to give all men their freedom. And as he shared how he had gained his own freedom from this Jesus, I forgot all about my errand. The man called himself a Christian. I listened to him until he finished speaking, and then I pushed my way through the crowd and tugged at his robes, my questions spilling out. Until sunset, we talked. Because I had waited so long and forgotten my errand, I was beaten by the slave master. But the blows were softened by the thought that freedom is possible, even for a slave like me. I found others who believed, and as we shared our thoughts, my faith in Jesus grew until I too became a Christian. Many of the others were slaves like myself, but there were some among us who were freeborn men of high rank, and these men treated us not as slaves, but as brothers and sisters. One of these men was a friend of my master, and one day we gathered up our courage and we went to my master, telling him what we believed. At first, he just sat there and shook his head. But over the weeks, as we talked of Jesus and his teachings, a light seemed to come on into his eyes, as if all sorts of answers were suddenly given to him, and he too became one of us. It was then that my master gave me my freedom. Through Jesus, I gained not only freedom of my soul, but freedom of my body as well. For the first time in my life, I was completely free. And though I was free, I stayed with my master not as a slave, but as a trusted friend. Then the arrests began. Nero needed someone to blame the troubles of Rome on. The Christians were the easy scapegoats. Both my master and I were arrested. But because of his position in the city, my master was told that he would be set free if he would agree to no longer speak of Jesus. He stood without moving for a long moment. Great tears filled his eyes as he glanced at me. Then he slowly nodded agreement and hurried out through the open door. But as for me, the barred doors of this stone cell slammed shut until I am needed for the amusement of twisted minds of madmen. And my master, although I know he was trying to help me, has placed even a greater burden upon me. He has sent word that through his influence he can gain my freedom. All I have to do is to deny that I believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God, and I'll be free to live out my days. When they gave me the parchment and told me what they wanted me to do, I started to throw it in the face of the jailer. But just as my fingers started to crush it, I heard the sounds of one of the other prisoners being tortured. My hand could move no further. They gave me till sunset to decide what I'll do. Already the shadows formed by the sunlight coming through the barred windows stretch out across the floor. And the sky grows red as the sun nearly touches the earth. All I have to do is to give them this piece of parchment, and I'll be free to walk out into that sunset and feel the cool night air bathe my face instead of feeling the tormenting flames. Wouldn't it be better for me to live and to do his will than to be dead and silent? I can give them their lie. Once I am free, meet with the others in secret to do his will. Oh, God. God, I want to live. I cherish this life that you gave to me. Must I give up my life to serve you? How can you ask this of me? How can you ask anyone to suffer so? How can you? The shadows. The shadows formed by the sunlight coming through the barred window. They form row after row of crosses. Did you suffer with him when he died? Even you? Oh God, God, I cannot help but be afraid of the pain of dying. Even your son there in the garden must have. Your son. Your son defeated the grave. Because of my fear. I'd almost forgotten his promise. He promised that through his death, I could conquer death. The pain. That's all I'm really afraid of, only the pain of dying. Not death itself. From the birth pangs of death comes the everlasting freedom of eternal life. Darkness. Darkness covers the earth now. But on the far horizon, I can still see the sunlight of your promise reaching out its fingers over the darkness to me. Yes. Yes, I know. It's time. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom, thy will be done. Give us this day